Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everybody. This is another edition of Deceased and Assist. And there's going to be coming a time in your life, if it hasn't already happened, where you need to make a decision on a funeral home. It's part of life. It's part of life. So making that decision is important, especially with the difference between family-owned funeral homes and corporate-owned funeral homes. There's a big difference. We're going to dig into that today with the owner of a family-owned funeral home, actually two, in New Jersey. And she is Geri Oliverie, and she joins us once again here today. How you doing?
Good. Hi, Steve. How are you?
Very well. Very well. It's good to have you back here. Let's go right there. What does family-owned mean, and who can actually claim that?
Well, family-owned means pretty much what it says. It's owned maybe by a new funeral director like me. I'm first generation, but it could be second or third generation. That doesn't take away the status of family home just because it's been passed down. But then there's big corporations or LLCs, and the primary members are really stockholders, not family, right? So they're on the stock market. They have a CEO, maybe no background in the funeral industry, worried about just corporate profits, not the families that they're serving. And they don't get the whole concept of a 24-hour business and stuff like that, right? So these corporations are really large. And some of the previous owners will stay on to give the illusion that they're family owned, because when the big corporations buy them, they don't want you to know that they've taken over. They want that illusion. So they sign a contract to stay on maybe 5 to 7 years. So that's pretty much the difference. Whereas family owned, you have a little bit more personal insight. We're here for you. We're 24 hours. You're not getting an answering service. You're getting me. I answer the phone like every other family owned funeral home at 2 a.m. It's my husband or my son who goes out to the house or the hospital, not somebody on staff that may be rotating and they could be an hour away because they don't live there. Like, I live in my funeral home, I live there. So it's interesting. I like it a lot. My children have a lot to say about that, but that's okay.
but it's become your lives. And I mean life for all of you guys. It's become a way of life, serving and helping others, no matter what time of the day it is.
Right.
And also, I have to believe there's a personal stake in it, where it's corporate owned. They're hiring a staff. Are they really, they got a manager, they got a funeral director or two. Are they really taking pride in what they're doing? Are they watching things, the finite little details that you only get to take care of once when somebody passes?
Right. You can't redo a funeral.
No.
You can't redo it. There's no do-overs. And so they have good days and bad days. I can't say they do a terrible job, but their employees have good days and bad days, right? Whereas I have to have a good day every day because I have to build on my reputation. So like my children started out when they were really young, they would clean, they would do laminating, they would do the garbage, they would do the vacuuming until they got old enough to drive. And then they started doing transfers from the homes to here with my dad and my husband and stuff like that. So it was, they grew up with it. So they know nothing else, because people will say, how is it living above a funeral home? And I'll say, well, they know no different. Since they've been born, they live above a funeral home. Mm-hmm. So this is all they know. What they miss, they get over. They don't have trampolines. They don't have pools. But you know what? They learn to ride bikes faster and skateboard and everything else because we have a huge parking lot. So there's pros and cons to where you live. I don't have to worry about neighbors with children and disappearing and I can't find my kids. Where are they? There's nobody. I live on the highway. They're home. They're home. They can't disappear except to their room, so which I can pretty much hunt them down. So that's not hard. We have an intercom. So there was another thing that made being family owned so great because I had an intercom and I can say to my children, lower the TV or just stop jumping around. We have a service, or, can you please move the laundry? Can you please start the oven? So there's so many advantages. We're in the community. We're in the school system. We're at the school board. We're at the football games. We're at everything. So we're involved. We go shopping. Sometimes I go shopping 9 o'clock at night because if you go any earlier, a 15-minute shopping trip takes an hour because somebody is going to see you and start talking to you, right?
You've become a fixture of the community, and you're not a restaurant, which is fine.
No.
A family-owned restaurant, fantastic. Love them. However, you provide a service at some of the most fragile emotional times that will ever come about in somebody's life, and you're there. And by the way, when we say family-owned funeral home, it is a home.
To me, it is. I live there.
Well, yes, but why do we call it a funeral home? When you're going to a service, you want to feel like you are home. Somebody is, right. If you want to look at it religiously for some, somebody is going home again. So there's a lot, in that word right there. Can you, Geri, can you give us the scenario of, let's say, corporate takeover and what that could possibly look like?
So when the corporates take over, they'll keep someone on for the illusion, but they automatically raise prices, negotiate volume discounts that the family owned can't because we're not doing that volume. So to give you an idea how big these corporations are, SCI, which is Service Corporation International, own over 3,000 funeral homes.
Wow.
So when you own over 3,000 funeral homes across the US and maybe part of the UK, you are getting a volume discount on things, but you're not passing it on to the consumer. They're keeping the profits because they raise the prices. And then we can't lower our prices because we can't compete. We're not selling 5,000 caskets in a year to get a volume discount. And then some of them do hostile takeovers. They go into contracts to buy the funeral home, and if they know you're in a little bit of trouble or a little bit of finances, they drag it out so that you fall into arrears, and then they start renegotiating on you, and they do a hostile takeover. Wow. And that happened to a funeral home in Mississippi, and the movie is out on Netflix. It was in 1999. It was with the Lowen Group, another very big corporation, and that family did eventually sue and win. It took many years, but they got millions of dollars. And he got to keep his 3 funeral homes and move forward, where he wanted to sell because, like some of us, it ends up being our property is more valuable than it is as a funeral home, because we're like, I'm on a corner of 2 highways. That's valuable real estate to somebody else. So he thought, well, I'll sell. I have no one to give to, no legacy. And this will be my retirement. And he tried to screw him, but in the end, Lowen lost. They lost a major big lawsuit. So you have to be careful with these corporate owned. They're not really there for the family or the funeral director. It's a business, flat out. It's a business, and that's the way it works.
When we talk about business, can you give us a snapshot of what the difference is between family and corporate owned? Maybe in terms of prices. We don't have to actually talk prices, but in terms of numbers, is it about the same, or are they trying to, these corporate companies try to upsell you? What's going on?
They try to upsell you, yeah. So sometimes they're like used car salesmen, for lack of a better term. While you're there, they'll be like, do you want this package, which is going to include a lawyer and an estate planner and this. And then, we have grief in there. So, you could buy this for $250 as a package. Meanwhile, a lot of this you could do on your own. Like I have grief for free. We send out emails saying, join the grief program. There's these local ones. There's ones at the church, ones at the hospital. My daughter's a licensed therapist. You could join her. You could join, I have one online, which is, by phone. You could do that one for free. They're all free. And the same thing, like I'll give them the advice. I give them the surrogate book. I give them all that stuff. So I don't upsell. I help them. If they need help with the insurance, whether they're using the insurance to pay me or not, I'll get the claim forms. I'll fill it out for them. Do all that, where they will do it for a fee. So and then also I know my families. I know who can and cannot afford certain things. So I'm not going to upsell a casket or upsell them into 4-hour viewing when I know they can't afford it. Maybe they can only afford 2. Or maybe I know their situation and I will ask them, have they applied for Medicaid yet? Because even if they're applying or if they've been approved, I can get Medicaid to pay for some of the funeral. So I'll ask, even though I'm going to get paid a third of what I'm going to get, I know my families and I don't want to be the one who slaps them with this large bill they can't afford. Can't get blood out of a rock, right? So why are you going to do that? But they'll do that, and then they'll, upsell, and then they'll sue you, and then they'll put a lien on your house. So we try to know and understand our family, so we don't do that. That it's just different,
It must be so interesting being part of the community for 35 plus years.
Yeah,
losing
I've
track.
been doing this since I was 18, and I'm 62. So
wow, we're the same age.
Yeah.
It must be so amazing that you must be taking care of generations of families.
I have some families I've buried 5 and 6 times because it's lateral, not just generational up and down, because it'll be their grandmother, their mother, but then it'll be their aunt or their uncle. So I have quite a few that are very, very, very loyal to me. But then because they're so loyal to me, and I can make every funeral very unique. I can get out of them what I know and what questions to ask so that I can make them all unique. So we do life celebration here, which I think we've discussed before. So it's not just a video, it's not just a slideshow, it's not just a blanket, but that we will find things like I have one coming up that he has a Camaro that he's had for 20 years. He babies it. He keeps it in the garage. He polishes it once a month. He car waxes it. He does all that. And he only takes it out for occasional car shows in good weather. So we're going to do a cutout of his personal Camaro with him in it driving. And we're going to put his obit on one side and his other information on the other side. And we're going to hand that out instead of a memorial card that's just a prayer and a picture.
Wow.
Right? So we could do that.
Did I hear cutout?
Yeah, it's a cutout. It's about the size of your hand. It will take a picture of his Camaro. We'll have it cut out on cardboard, put his picture, his obit, and his other information on it. And when people come in, we'll just hand them out, so that they take them, because memorial cards not everybody takes. But if they see this and we hand it out, they keep them. It's a nice little keepsake.
Wow.
But you don't do it with corporations. They don't take the time to do all that
That
get to know you deep enough to do it, right?
That is
Yeah.
amazingly special. And yes, and with a corporation, if you walked in and said, yeah, I know somebody that had this done and it was a cutout of the car. Can you guys do that? I'm sure the corporation will find a way to get it done. However, it's going to cost you a lot.
Yeah. So I had one down the road at funeral home. So I did the family. I buried in the family like 3 times, but then somebody else died and they went to a different funeral home down the road, not the people that would have called me. And we had a cutout in there for the son. He was a football player, and we did something with his football jersey and his helmet and stuff like that. And when they got there, it was his grandfather who died. They put the grandson's stuff in the casket, and the funeral home called me and said, "Where did you get that? It's great. It's in the grandfather's casket, blah, blah, blah." And I explained to him, we do it, but it's territorial. We own the territory, so we're not giving it up. So you have to figure out another way to do it because we're not giving the territory up.
Wow.
So, yeah. So it was really interesting. And we get this turned around in 2 to 3 days, tops, sometimes 24 hours if we have to. We'll pay extra to get it here. But we do it. And the holidays are a problem. Like now, things have to be in Monday to have them for Thursday because it's FedEx. Because, if FedEx isn't shipping, what are you going to do? It's not the people because it's just FedEx. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah. Well,
But
you
we
can only
get
do
it.
what you
We
can
get it
do.
done. Yeah.
What other thoughts in terms of family that maybe we haven't seen, you haven't talked about?
My family being family owned,
Either of the above.
like a lot of the hospice nurses and stuff recommend us and the nursing homes, because they see us so often and we're so caring when we go to the homes and the nursing home. So like when we go to your house or the nursing home, we will leave a rose on the bed or the chair, wherever the person died. We will leave that there so that when you come back into where your loved one is, and we've already folded all the sheets, the pillowcases, and the blankets, and we made a nice pile, that you see this rose there representing your loved one, and that
Wow.
it's not so sad to go in and see this empty room. Right. So we
Wow.
do things like that. And then when we leave the house, instead of just a stretcher with, the plastic or burgundy blue bag, that usual bag that you see like on TV.
Hmm.
We'll put like for the ladies, we'll put a quilt on. If it's a gentleman, we'll put the flag on, so that when you leave, there's a little representation of that person's life, not just somebody in a bag.
Some
Right?
dignity and
Yeah,
caring.
some kind of dignity. And, as we're coming out, they see that because we go in the family's room by ourselves, of course, and we leave the rose, do all that. But then as we're coming out, they're either in the kitchen or they're in the living room. So they watch us as we go by. So it makes it just a little nice touch. And, we value your loved one just as much as you do.
That is so special. I'm serious. And I'm glad we're talking about this today, Geri, because I know you guys are great. You've just elevated my opinion, even just with a rose on a bed.
You call a corporation and you get push one. Is this immediate need? Is this a pre-need? Is it for directions? Is it for flowers? Unfortunately, you get me, and whatever the phone call is, I'm going to handle it. So sometimes at night, people are so used. I mean, we have people programmed to push buttons that sometimes I have people call 11 o'clock at night for directions, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't expect to get you. Is there a button for directions?" I'm like, "No, I'll give you directions. It's me. I'm going to answer the phone. Could be a death call, so you got to, always have that mindset, be careful what you say,
But
to
it's
be like,
the personal
hello.
touch. It is the
Yeah.
personal touch. Do I have this right? Way back in the day, I think I'm looking at 40 years ago ish, whatever. That you were one of the only funeral homes in your community that would hand out platters.
Yeah. My mom would go to the deli, not like a ShopRite or whatever. She would go to a real deli and buy the meat and stuff, make these great platters with salad, 5 different pounds of cold cuts, cheese, everything. And in between, because it was more traditional to have a 2 to 4 and 7 to 9, and in between, the family would go back to the house, and anybody who was there would go with them. So we would give them a platter to take home and take that with them so they had some food and they didn't have to worry about getting like pizza
Sure.
or subs. And my mom made those for years. And then COVID happened, and then funerals changed. Cremations took a big uptick, and people are doing like 1 to 5 or 4 to 8 or 3 to 7. So there's that cold cut platter kind of went by the wayside, but we were the only one who did it since 1987.
Well, what did that turn into? Now you cater in-house because, in terms of the state, you're allowed to do that.
Right. So now I have a restaurant, I have an atrium with coffee, snacks, you can have a buffet. So, right, I parlayed it into something a little different. Right.
That's it. That being said, I want your opinion on this. This is a little, this made headlines about a week ago. Funeral home in Ohio now has a liquor
I
license.
saw that. I saw that. That goes through our channels too. I saw that. So, Columbus, Ohio, they now have a funeral home with a liquor license. So, Jersey won't be able to do that. Um, Jersey has a rule that no alcohol should be served on the funeral home premises. So, I have a restaurant that's attached and it's BYOB because I cannot sell or serve alcohol. So, if it's BYOB, I kind of skirt it a little bit.
I mean, some people will say, no, that's bad. But, you're also celebrating somebody's life as long
Yeah.
as it's, within reason. Having a glass of wine, maybe
Yeah.
that might be good to take the edge off of somebody who's very upset.
You have to know your family.
You have to know
Can
your
your
family.
family handle the alcohol, or is every time you get together you have alcohol, there's a brawl? You know your family.
It's like,
You know your family.
here comes Uncle Vinny again.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's nothing you could do about it. I don't know your family, so I do have a bartender though. If you bring alcohol,
Wow.
because I do make them hire a bartender because I want to make sure whoever's leaving my premises isn't drunk. Because in New Jersey, that comes back to me.
Sure.
So I let them overserve themselves. So I have a licensed bartender who will cut anyone off so that I know somehow I'm a little protected. I try.
I don't blame you one bit, and you're on the hook for it. And who's watching? You have a lot of things to take care of. If somebody from the family isn't watching, we know they're not because they're in a different state of mind. Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to do it. Totally get it. If you could do anything, you would be allowed to do anything. Is there anything floating out there that you might change, or you might bring to one of your funeral
Well,
homes?
they're changing different type of dispositions to where green funerals have been around, and we're starting to do a lot more of those. But now there's also the hydrolysis, and then there's also the radiation one.
Oh, what
So
is
there's
that? I've never
a
heard of it.
bunch of different ways to get cremated now, which haven't passed in Jersey, but out west they're starting to tweak with it and play with it. So
Interesting.
you can become mulch and stuff like that. It's like a truck bed. They put you actually with compost, right? So in order to be composted, you have to be put with fruits, vegetables, and different organic material so that you can become part of the compost. So it's like, I don't know, it's probably a half a ton when you're done, but you don't have to collect all that. You could just say, I want a small amount and use the compost somewhere else. But there's different things you got to know about it. Like hydrolysis is water, and our body's mostly water, so that's one way. The compost, you breaks it down to organic material, but bone and teeth, and it still comes down to where you have to be pulverized. Even though you're part of the organic, the bone and the teeth never go away. They never totally disintegrate. So, I mean, that's why when you find Indian burial plot lands and stuff like that, they'll be like, oh, there's bones, and they still find that hundreds of years later. So there's still extra steps that are involved, but other options are coming. So when you do green burials, they're still in cemeteries that are specific for that.
Wow.
And so there's nothing but like organic cotton, no chemicals, no embalming, nothing like that. But no headstones, no vaults, nothing. But at least you're in the ground somewhere and you feel more natural. Right.
And
So there's all these different options. So as it continues, you say, how can I get into that? Right? How can I offer that? What's it going to cost me? What's involved?
just for
Well, license.
clarity, and maybe to answer the question that nobody would ever get a chance to usually ask, in the cremation process, the urn that you get with the ashes, I'm going to say it, the teeth, bones, and everything are strained or filtered out, right? That's not part of it.
Well, it is part, but it goes into a next step. It goes into a thing as like a size of a desk, and it gets pulverized.
Okay.
Like with a blade, right? It gets pulverized into smaller. What you don't get is metal. Anything they can remove with a magnet is removed with a magnet first. So if your fillings have metal or gold, which has some metal, they're coming out with a magnet. If you have something in your arm, your leg, or screws or anything, that all gets removed. So the bone will be pulverized. Your clothing, of course, is burned. And then if in New Jersey, we have minimum alternative containers that have to be required. So some don't have that. You can go in a sheet. We don't. You have to be in a minimum cardboard or, presswood container, and that is also part of your cremains.
Wow. Learned a lot today. I see you're fantastic. Your family's fantastic. But I see you in, like I said previously, in a different light in terms of that loving, compassionate, personal touch that you guys offer. Wonderful.
Yeah.
2 locations. Where are they in New Jersey?
In Manchester and Jackson, New Jersey. Mm-hmm.
Jackson, New Jersey. Isn't that where the amusement park is?
Great Adventure.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's about 7-8 miles away.
Yeah. I'm in New York, but I always hear.
Well, I grew up in Jackson, so that was my first job at 16.
Oh wow! And I get back there maybe every 2 or 3 years. Geri, fabulous talking with you today. Thanks for all the insight and everything.
You're welcome.
Everything your family does for the community, and Happy New Year, by the way.
Happy New Year! Thanks a lot.
All right, we'll talk soon. We'll be right back.
All right, bye.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
It's Thursday night, and you're grabbing drinks with some friends. Started off with a pitcher for the table, which quickly becomes 2. There's pool. And there's the photo booth.
All right, everybody squeeze in. Say cheese!
Followed naturally by an order of wings. And another.
Can we get some extra ranch sauce?
Then there's the ceremonial nightcap.
So what are we doing this weekend?
And lastly, it's back to the car, which, if you're buzzed, could be the most expensive night of your life. Getting pulled over for buzzed driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzzed driving, because buzzed driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.